An initiative of the Greater Des Moines Partnership formed in 2007, the Business Innovation Zone, the BIZ, exists to connect entrepreneurial needs with qualified resources and to provide guided professional and business direction. The BIZ helps entrepreneurs maximize their successes by helping them navigate resources, strengthen knowledge, improve skills, form strategic alliances, and secure proper capitalization. To find out more about the BIZ, visit www.bizci.org.
Mike just does a fabulous job with these luncheons. I attend as many of them as I can, and the topics are always very interesting, so I encourage you to always be here. Thank you for that nice introduction, Mike. It reminded me many years ago when my first husband had an opportunity to introduce me at a Rotary luncheon. We were working on the Rotary. He got up and he said, I'd like to introduce Katie Roth. She's the mother of our 3 children. And we sat down. And so I got up and I said, well, thank you. And, I'm very proud of my 3 kids. They're just wonderful kids and great accomplishments. But, I've done some other things in my life as well. So I said, I'd like to thank my husband for that introduction. He's the father of 2 of them. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about, I've been in the staffing industry since before I got pregnant with my first child, and he's 26 years old. Incidentally, my first husband did father all 3 of my kids. So I've been in the staffing industry a long time. I was with a national staffing firm for almost 10 years, and then I went with a professional employer organization. Some of you might be familiar with Fair Resources. They go into small and medium-sized companies and outsource HR and staffing, internet staffing, benefits, and that type of thing. And then I opened up my own agency about 8 years ago. So I've been back in the business on my own for 8 years. And I will tell you, I've made every mistake in the book. I violated every rule that I tell my clients not to do. So a lot of this is firsthand experience. So I think a lot of times when companies call me and they've hired the wrong person, there's a lot of reasons why they've hired the wrong person. A lot of times they might hire the right person, but they put them in the wrong job. They're not doing the right thing. Earlier we were talking, some of my friends here, we were talking about everybody has innate talents and abilities. And oftentimes, instead of trying to fix the job that the person's doing, they try to fix the person. And frankly, it's just hard to change that internal wiring that you grew up with. Salespeople have internal wiring that makes them great. And like we do have a behavioral-based evaluation that we do give our perm placement candidates. We don't do it on the temp side, but we do on the perm side. That really helps us kind of zero in on why people are good at what they do and then try to find the right job for them. So oftentimes what companies do is they try to fix the person. Somebody who's not going to be good at sales, no matter what you do, is going to make them good at sales. They're just going to be miserable. They either have that ability to keep picking up the phone and be persistent, or they don't. So a lot of times I think companies try to pigeonhole people and it just doesn't work out. The key is finding the candidate that is the right fit for the job. A lot of times they have the right skills, the background, or the education, but it's not a good cultural fit for the organization. Like obviously you can't train somebody to be an attorney, they gotta go to law school. An accountant's gotta go to a four-year degree. So a lot of times I think what companies do is they hire with a skill set, but then they don't make sure that that person's a good fit within the organization. So the person may have the skills to do the job, but maybe the culture isn't right for them. Maybe it's too crazy, maybe they don't get enough attention, maybe they get too much attention. A lot of times I talk to candidates and I'll go, what kind of environment do you want to work in? Well, I don't want to be micromanaged. Okay, well, have you been micromanaged in your previous job? Yes, okay. So you want to make sure that when you hire people, the kinds of things that they're going to need to have to be successful in the position are there, and oftentimes they're not. Situation number 4, and I think this is where clients a lot of time make the biggest mistake, is they simply don't spend enough time talking to the candidate. We always recommend that when we send somebody over, not on the temp side, but on the perm placement side, that they talk to the candidate at least 2 to 3 times and maybe even go out to lunch. The first interview, you want to just see whether or not, they've got the skills for the job, they've got the ability, whether or not you think it's a good cultural fit. By the second or third interview, oftentimes they feel like they've got the job. So a lot of times you may hear things that you wouldn't hear because they may volunteer because they've gotten kind of comfortable. Also, something else that we recommend is that you do a group interview or maybe have more than one person involved in the interview because what you hear might not be what the other person hears. So it's always helpful to have a second set of ears. If you're hiring a salesperson, you might want to walk out and see what their car looks like. You know, if they're going to be taking prospects out to lunch and their car isn't fit, has McDonald's wrappers in it, hasn't been washed for 5 weeks, is that the kind of representation you want for your organization? So I think a lot of times the clients just don't spend enough time with the candidate to get to know them. And it doesn't have to be stretched over a 5-week period. It can be done in a 2 to 3 day period, but I think they just don't really know the person that they're hiring until it's really too late, 2 to 3 months after the job, and they're sort of thinking, man, if I would have known that, I would have never hired this person. Another situation that I see our clients do is they just don't ask the right questions. Once you find whether or not somebody can do the job, I really think that you really want to know how they think, how they act, how they're going to react in certain situations. And those are behavioral-based questions. So, you know, tell me about a time your supervisor was gone and you made a mistake. Tell me about a time your coworker wasn't doing what they should be doing as far as this project was concerned. Tell me about a time you didn't get along with somebody in the workplace. Tell me about a time you made a mistake. What did you learn from it? What would you do differently next time? I always ask salespeople, tell me about the time you lost your biggest sale. Well, what went wrong? And what I want to hear there is that the salesperson said it was my fault. I underestimated my competition. I didn't do my research. If I hear, well, I lost it because of price, then that salesperson is probably always going to use that as an excuse when they don't get a sale. You know, so I think it's another great thing to do is you give them a copy of the job description if you've been thorough in your preparation. You give them a copy of the job description and you have them read the job description and you say to them, what are you going to struggle with most on this job description? What's going to be the hardest thing for you to do on this job description? And have them talk a little bit about this. Another question I ask is, what are you most proud of professionally? And I have to tell you something. It's amazing to me that a lot of people don't have anything that they've thought about or that they're particularly proud about. And I don't want to hear, well, I'm a good team player, well, I'm great at customer service. I want to hear a specific example of how you saved a client, how you talked somebody off the cliff that was going to leave your organization. So that tells me a lot. One time I interviewed a young lady, and she had just graduated from AIB, and she said, well, I haven't been out in the workforce, but when I was in high school, my volleyball team went to the state championships. And you know, I mean, she described it, and I could see myself at that auditorium, I could smell the popcorn. You know, she just described this whole thing, and that told me that she was competitive. She turned out to be a great employee, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a professional, it can be personal as well. Although you want to be a little careful about the personal questions, right, Beth? Got a bunch of HR attorneys sitting here, so I have to be careful what I say. Because what you don't want to do is ask a question and then end up having to talk to an attorney later because you said something inappropriate. Describe a situation, how would you handle it? You know, those are the behavioral-based questions. And incidentally, I've got supplemental material. I've got dozens of behavioral-based questions. I don't know if I brought cards, but email me and I'm happy to send you all my backup material on this kind of thing. We just got dozens of stuff. So, you know, you want to just start to get a good feel for the person. There was a great article. Is anybody familiar with Build Magazine? Build Magazine is done by the editors of Inc. Magazine, and I think it's free. This comes out quarterly. It's just one-page ideas about every topic in the business, and it's just, I can't say it good enough good things about it. I think it's free. I mean, I get it for free, but maybe that's because I get it in the magazine. But there was a gentleman in there that talked about the art of an interview. He was co-founder of a company called, I think, Referably. I wasn't sure, but he's the owner. So at the end, after the people got through the initial process, he's the last person to talk to him. So at the end of the interview, he chats him up a little bit, and then at the end of the interview, he says, I want you to explain something to me. Pick any topic you want. A hobby you have, a book you've read, a project you've worked on, anything. You'll have just 5 minutes to explain it. At the beginning of the 5 minutes, you shouldn't assume anything about what I know, and at the end, you should understand whatever is most important about this topic. During the 5 minutes, I might ask you some questions, and you can ask me some questions. Take as much time as you need to think about it, and let me know when you want to start. He says, out of 100 people, only 2 to 3 people do a good job on this. And you know why? Most people start talking immediately. They don't sit back and take 5 minutes to talk. They don't use analogies. They don't ask questions. And he says, you have to sit there, you can't interrupt, you gotta kind of put, hold your tongue, which is hard for some of us. But he says at the end of this, he has a good feeling about how whether this person can communicate, whether this person can relay ideas. He says people who use analogies usually do a good job on this. So I'm famous for taking stuff that doesn't belong to me and sending it out to all my client base. So I scanned this article and sent it out to all my HR clients. And I have some HR friends who are the top people in their position in companies. And 2 or 3 of them emailed me back and goes, wow, I don't know if I have enough guts to ask that. Wow, you know. And these are HR people, okay? So anyway, if you want to copy this, just email and I will send it to you. But you want to know how people think. Way back when I was with Olson Staffing Services, this is way before the advent of the internet. At the very end of it, I would ask a candidate, I'd say, hey, if I needed to know how many gas stations there are in the United States, can you give me 3 ways how you would find that information? So this is before the internet, okay? Honest to God, one candidate looked at me and goes, why would you want to know that? You know? But, you know, then I get on my shoulder and say, next. And there's dozens of ways you can find that information. You can call the American Petroleum Association. You can take the average number of gas stations in the United States, in Des Moines, extrapolated, divided by the population, they'll give you a ballpark figure. You know, there's a whole bunch of stuff, ways you can find that. One young lady looked at me and she goes, well, you know what? I love to travel, so I would just hop in my car and drive all over the United States and come. Now, is that practical? No. Is that feasible? Absolutely not. But she was very creative at talking. It told me that she was creative. Because in my business with staffing, I need people who could solve problems. We find people. So the last thing I want to hear in a staff meeting is, hey, I can't find anybody for this position. You know, so I want to know, okay, yeah, well, we ran an ad on Criminal. Okay, what else did you do? There's 800 other things you could do to find people, you know. Because don't walk into me 2 days later and tell me that one of my competitors found that person. That person's out there, we just haven't found them. So I need people who are creative and think about, what do I do if we don't get a good response on Criminal? What do we do if we don't get a good response here or there or whatever? I need people who can be creative. So I think I got a little ahead of myself. I think I did. Anyway, also the other thing that I find sometimes is that a lot of level jobs, and these are lower level jobs, but customer service and interaction with clients and service, a lot of those jobs, they really can be taught. But what you can't teach is motivation. You can't teach, you know, does it take a grenade to get them out of bed in the morning? You know, what are their core values? What drives them? What's important to them? You know, are they good at problem solving? So a lot of times when a client is having trouble filling a position, I'll say, what are the characteristics of the position that you're looking for? Rather than, you know, they have to do 7,000 keystrokes per hour, they have to know Microsoft Word, they have to know this, they have to know that. Is it more important that if a client calls in and they're angry that they can talk this person off the cliff? You know, what are the characteristics, what are the things about the job that they need to have that's kind of innate in them? Because you can probably teach them how to do Microsoft Word. Would it be great if they had it? Yeah, but you can teach them some of those skills. So sometimes I think the client looks at it from the wrong angle. We do have a client that wants customer service reps that have maybe 1.5 to 2 years of experience, and we always try to do that. But oftentimes it's being cheerful and being nice and answering the phone and being positive and upbeat and not complaining all the time. Those are things sometimes that are hard to find. And I got that myself. So this was that article out of Bill Magazine, but just a great interview question. The other thing I think is good is if you can and you have the luxury, have them jobs shadow for a day and a half. I'm hiring a person for our perm placement side. I have to tell you, I love my business, I love my job, I think I have the greatest job in the world, but it's hard for somebody that comes in. So I hire for qualities, I hire for trades, I hire for persistence. I can teach them how to go find people. I know how to find people. So, but there's a young man I've been talking to for 3 or 4 months now, but he's going to quit a full-time job with benefits to come work for me. And I said, you know what, let's do this. I want you to take 2 days off during vacation. I will pay you, but I want you to come in, and I'm going to put him on the phones for 2 hours in the afternoon making marketing calls. I'm going to put him on the phone 2 hours in the morning calling accountants, because that's what you have to do to find people. Because I want him to make sure that he understands what's going to be expected of the job before he quits a really great job with a good organization. So if you can bring him into job shadow, you know, I'm going to give him the toughest part of the job. You don't have to do that, but I always try to want to scare him out of it. Have him come back and go, no, I know I can do this, and I can do this until I, you know, find success. Oh, yes,
How many
yeah.
times have you done that, where people have done that you recommended, and they get to that point, and they let it go? I think that would be hard to do.
It is hard to do, Judy, but you know what? You know what the critical thing is? The more you do that, the people that do stay, studies show will stay with you longer. Okay, so this is a lot of work. Yeah. None of this is easy. It takes time and it takes effort, you know. But I would rather have him walk out and say, you know what, Kitty, this is not for me, than to, in 3 months, you go up to him and go, this isn't working out. You know what I'm saying?
But does it happen? What when you say?
Oh, you know what, actually, JB, I'm just starting this. I'll let you know what's different. But the reason I bring this up was because there was this, we were talking about social workers earlier. Social workers in New York City, can you imagine the worst job in New York? I mean, can you imagine? So the social work department in New York City was having a terrible, terrible time recruiting people. You know, they recruit them and then they work for 2 months and they go into, you know, can you imagine cockroach-infested tenements with dirty children and drugs and all kinds of stuff. And it's not safe in New York City anyway, you know. So what they started to do, JB, was they brought people in. They made them job shadow for 3 days. And what happened was that they found that they recruited less people, but the people that they recruited stayed longer because they had a much better idea of the position before they took it. So I'll let you know how it works out. But I think sometimes our business is stressful and it can be, you know, and so this young man's got a pretty good career right now, so I want to make sure he's making the right decision for himself, you know, and so I'm hoping he's going to work out. Now, if somebody's unemployed, that's a little bit different, but even then, it's just helpful for them to know what the job is like before they walk in. You know, have him sit with a coworker, have him sit with somebody and just talk a little bit about what they're doing. Yeah, a couple of days ago, a young lady was thinking about joining us. I actually brought her on a sales call, you know. I said, all you have to do is just sit there, you don't have to talk or anything like that. And I told the prospect, and he was fine with that. So, you know, I just wanted her to have a little feel for something. And I was kind of tough with the prospect because I wanted her to, I just wasn't going to throw a bunch of softballs. Build Magazine, this was another slide that I got out of Build Magazine, but this is, you know, they talk about what the cost of turnover is. Turnover is so expensive. It's so expensive for recruiting. It's so expensive on morale. It's so expensive on supervisors' time. And sometimes it's tough to put a dollar amount on it. So I thought this chart, I think it's an Excel spreadsheet, really does a nice job of being able to estimate what your cost of turnover is. Because I think it's a lot of times it's a soft cost, so it's very difficult to put it on there. So anyway, but if you want this, just send me an email and I'll send you the formula. Wanted to talk a little bit about the labor shortage, and actually we really almost have a labor shortage now in Iowa. I think unemployment's between 4% and 5%. Typically, 2 to 3% is unemployable. So then it leaves about 2% that may have been sitting on the market for 2 years collecting unemployment. Okay, so you know a lot of them haven't gotten enough to work every day and that kind of thing. So, you know you've got a kind of a really tough labor market right now, but it's going to get worse because of what's going to happen with the baby boomers. Because when the baby boomer generation, which I'm kind of on the tail end of it, I was born in 1955, so yeah. So does that make me an old baby boomer or a young baby boomer? Anyway, so when my generation, when our fathers came home from storming the Nazis at Normandy, they stormed our mothers, okay? So there was this huge increase in the population, okay? So you've got this big group of people that Mike assured me that he could edit some of this in case I said something inappropriate. I'm sorry, what, John? Thanks, John. I thought about this, I thought, you know, in the old days, none of this was out there, and I thought, oh, this is going to be online, and people can go look at it. Last time I spoke, the only people that showed up was my competitors. You know, so it's nice to see some friendly faces in the audience. But what's going to happen is in the next 5 to 7 years, everybody that was born between 1945 and 1955, 1956 is going to start retiring. The only reason why that hasn't happened is because of the recession in 2008. So a lot of the people that would have started retiring 4 or 5 years ago really couldn't afford to. Their 401ks went to heck, type situation. But in the next couple of years, people are going to start retiring. it's gonna create not only a labor shortage, but I was talking about this with somebody else this morning. A lot of times what's gonna happen when the baby boomers retire is the institutional memory of your organization is gonna walk out the door. And I don't think human resource managers have any grasp of that information and what that means when that walks out. And that's why history repeats itself. Because if people are forgotten, nobody's there to remind them that we might have done this 30 years ago and it was a disaster, so we don't want to do that again. So when I talk to some clients and do some other presentations, I talk about take what take your top salesperson, have them sit down and write everything they know about this client, because I can guarantee you, most of it's they're carrying around in their head. They know their kid went to Iowa, they know they like to golf, they know what their handicap is, they know their wife likes to scramble. I know a lot of personal stuff about my clients that isn't written down anywhere. We were going to see a client, today as a matter of fact at lunch, he said, go to Michael's and buy her $25 worth of scrapbooking stuff because she loves to scrapbook. Oh, okay. $25 is cheaper than taking somebody out to lunch, and now she remembers something. So a lot of the institutional memory, the processes and procedures, a lot of that stuff's just not being written down. It's just being carried around in that, and it's going to walk out the door when those people retire. And the time to get it is not 2 weeks before you're planning the retirement party. But again, it takes time and effort to sit down and write that stuff down. So anyway, the good news, there is good news though. The good news is, and this was in the Des Moines Register a couple weeks ago, actually, the Des Moines area has done an outstanding job of attracting the 25 to 34-year-olds old. The partnership has done a great job. We've got a lot of great industries in town that have done a good job of attracting people back. So I don't think the picture here is as gloomy as it is maybe in some other parts of the country. The financial services industry has certainly kept this economy up here. So it's a little bit of a good news, bad news situation, but I think HR people really need to start focusing on the succession planning. The last couple, I placed HR people, the last couple of orders I've got for HR people, they've really told me we want to focus on somebody that can come in, do TAL planning, strategic management, this person's going to sit at the table. And these were organizations that they used to call HR personnel, okay? So even they're starting, now principals doing it, Wells Fargo's doing it, BIZ is doing it, but basically 80% of the economy are organizations that have 4 to 150 employees. And these people don't have the resources sometimes that the principals and Wells Fargo's and the BIZ have. So anyway, I read this in the Wall Street Journal not too long ago, but I think it's very true, is, right now Obama's focusing on, the lack of jobs, the lack of skilled labor. We have a terribly skilled labor shortage in this country. But I think the thinking's going to shift from the mindset of we don't have enough jobs to we don't have enough people for the amount of work that needs to be done. And China's going to go through a labor shortage too. And, outsourcing is not always going to be the solution to all this. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, anybody have any questions or any of their own personal experiences? Mark shared with me that his brother was a social worker years and years ago, and he got burned out on social work. And his sister moved him out to California to go work for a retail organization, and they could talk to him about putting him in the IT department. He goes, I know nothing about IT. They go, no, but you know how to deal with people. So he went to work in the IT department, worked there for many years, and bought his own company. He's wildly successful. So, now, in this day and age, would somebody in IT hire somebody with a social work background? Probably not. Sure, maybe. So we'll talk a little bit about how do you retain people. And some of this, I think, is, I'll talk about it for the younger generation because I think it's the Gen Y people that are going to be coming down the ranks. Obviously, those are the people that are going to come to work for you. But the Generation Y are the millennials. Typically, they're the 18 to 34-year-olds old. They're very technology savvy. They have a very good work ethic. They're family oriented. But the thing is these are the people that are most likely to turn over. You can read any study on the internet. 30 to 35% of them are talking to replacement recruiters like myself. They're always keeping their eyes open. This generation, they're very much like the greatest generation. They're very family loyal. They're very loyal to their families. Their marriages are important to them. Their families are important to them. But these people will turn over. These people think nothing of taking a job for 2 years and going someplace else. Now, Mary and I were talking about one of the hardest things for me as a paradigm shift is, back when I started, if you had 3 jobs in 5 years, you were considered to be a job hopper. You were considered not to be very stable. That is changing. And so now when I look at resumes, I have to look at their skills, and it's hard for me because they said, oh man, if they had 3 jobs in this 5 years, they'll leave again. But you know what, these people are just gonna leave anyway. It's just gonna happen, so you just have to kind of keep that in mind. 83%, who here sleeps with their cell phone? It's out of curiosity. 1, 2, maybe sleeps with his cell phone. So 3 out of, but this is in, the average age of this group is a little bit older, probably 32 to 34. 88% dies, and then I heard an interesting statistic, this is appropriate to nothing else, but there's more cell phones in India than there are toilets. 2. But 75%, I mean, I had to learn how to text to communicate with my children. I told them would not talk to me unless I sent them a text. They were gonna call me back at a party and go, "Hi, Mom, everything's fine, I'm okay, I haven't been drinking." No. So, and my rule with my children, I pay for their cell phones, but you have to email me, you have to text me back and let me know that you're all right. That's my rule with my kids. But 52% would say, a good parent is important, but they want meaningful work, they do want good pay, they want a sense of accomplishment. So it's, that's all gonna have to be taken into consideration. These are people that are now probably gonna work past 5 o'clock. I've got people working for me, in the old days when I was at Ulster, we could not go home unless we had all the orders filled. Now, that was back in the days when you could just send somebody, and if they didn't work out, you just fired them at the end of the day. Now we have to interview, we have to send a client interviews, we reference check, we do all this stuff. So it's a little bit more difficult, but at 4:59, everybody's kind of closing up and leaving the workplace. So, here's some pictures that I just, this is the great thing about having a break in here, is some pictures of some workplaces, but who here has heard of web filings up in Ames? Have you visited their workspace? They have they have barrels of Nerf guns that when things get too stressful, everybody grabs a Nerf gun and starts firing Nerf balls at people. They have a huge cafeteria. Business Solver, there was an article in the paper not too long ago about Business Solver in the workplace that they're trying to create to attract these younger workers and that kind of thing. Now, if I had shown my father that slide and said, "You know what, Dad, I think you should put this in your electrical distributor shop," you know what I would have heard? You don't want to hear what I would have heard. That's what I laugh when I say, 2 of my 3 children have studied abroad, which if you don't have children yet that are studying abroad, you know what it really is? It's vacation abroad with a little bit of study, okay? They spend all their time traipsing all over Europe or Asia, and then they're in class about 2 days a week, and you pay a lot of money for that privilege. If I would have told my dad I wanted to study abroad, you know what he would have said? Join the army. Okay. Anyway, but generation-wide, they want to play with all the latest equipment. They're very good at multitasking. Their goal setting is a priority for them. They're very confident and optimistic, and they love to work in teams. And again, they're very much like the greatest generation. Sometimes Generation Y, I kind of debated whether or not to put in this slide because I don't really think, disloyal of the company, selfish and lazy, I don't really think that's true. I think part of the reason why they're going to be more apt to change jobs is because a lot of them saw their parents work for one organization all their life and then get downsized when they were 55 or 60 years old because they were too old or making too much money. So a lot of times the younger workers are going to look at an organization that they're going to join and they're going to think, what am I going to learn here? What is the skill that I'm going to get to be able to go to my next position? And that's the attitude that they're going to take to the job. So I don't really think they're disloyal. When I hire people, staffing industry, we are a great training ground for HR departments. Most of my people leave me and go work for Wells Fargo or Principal. Young man who worked for me just went to Seabrook, got a great job at Seabrook. And I said, hey, if you give me 2 good years, I'll help you find something else. And I know everybody in town, okay? So, just give me 2 good years and I'll teach you. HR departments like to hire out of staffing companies because we know how to recruit quickly and good candidates. We learn that. So I think, this thing about selfish, they're really more family-centric. Having a family, their work-life balance is going to be very, very important to them. And I don't think they're not lazy. They want to be kept involved. They want to be kept in the loop. They want to be informed. They want to be, know what's going on type situation. Sticking them in a cubicle, never talking to them, I don't think is going to work. I have to tell you a cute little story first. It's kind of a little bit of a sad story. But an HR manager got hit by a bus and died. And she went up to heaven, and at the pearly gates, St. Peter welcomed her in. And he said, welcome. He says, now you have a decision to make. You can either decide whether you want to go to heaven, or you can decide whether you want to go to hell. And the HR manager said, what are you talking about? I guess I'm going to go to heaven. He goes, no. employee manual. You gotta spend a day in hell, and you gotta spend a day in heaven. And she goes, really? And he goes, yeah. He goes, so what do you want to do first? You want to go to heaven first, or you want to go to hell first? She goes, no, let's get hell out of the way. So it's okay. So he walks her over to the elevator, and the elevator goes down, 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 down. The doors open, and it's and Beelzebub walks up, and he looks like Mark Wahlberg. And some of her friends are there, and they're dressed in the latest golf outfits from Nike, and they take her around, and she plays 18 holes, and then they go to the restaurant, and they order the finest bottle of wine, and the violinist comes up and is playing the violin. They're just really a great time. Weather's gorgeous. She shoots 8 under par. This is just a great time. So, Mark Wahlberg walks her back to the elevator. She goes back up to the elevator and sees the goes, how did it go? She goes, oh, he said, okay, you ready for your day in heaven? She goes, yeah. So it's pretty nice. The clouds are fluffy. The people are in long rows. It's peaceful, type situation. So, it's pretty nice. So at the end of the day, St. Peter comes up to her and he goes, hey, have you made a decision? And she goes, what? Go to hell. He goes, hey, man, listen, we finally understand. So he walks her over to the elevator. She gets on the elevator. She goes down, 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 down. The doors open, and it's like there's fires, and the people are wailing and gnashing their teeth, and Beelzebub doesn't look like Mark Wahlberg anymore. It looks like Jonathan Winters, and he's slashing people, and there's nothing to drink, and there's nothing to eat. Her friends are gone, and she walks up to him, and she goes, I don't understand. She goes, I must have gotten off on the wrong floor. And he goes, no, you're in the right place. She goes, I don't understand. And he goes, well, hey, yesterday we were recruiting you. Today you're an employee. How often does somebody get hired and they walk in and they go, Scott, oh my God, we're glad you're here. Sit in this little cubicle. Here's 8 pages of paperwork I want you to fill out. Oh, here's our employee manual. It's 80 pages long. At the end of it, I want you to sign that you've read and understood it so I can fire you in case there's some infraction down the road. And then I'll be back at 3:30, okay? So Scott sits there and feels like, nobody comes by, nobody talks to him, nobody takes him on the lunch. He's sitting there, nobody starts training him. His email's not set up, he doesn't have business cards. What kind of introduction? The younger generation, studies have shown, will make a decision about the long-term viability with your organization based on the first day of employment. So you got to make their first day or week a wow experience. You got to be ready. Anybody start a new job? What day did you probably start on? Okay. What's the busiest day of the week? Okay. Why not start something on Wednesday or Friday or Thursday? This is the gal that I'm hiring. I said, why don't you start on Wednesday, May 1st? I won't be rushed. Because I've been guilty of this before. Hey, Granny, we're so glad you're here. Boom. They don't see me for 3 weeks. So they expect to make a difference on the first day. So you want to make sure their first day is unforgettable. They'll challenge the status quo. They'll ask you questions. Position the job based on duties and responsibilities. Challenges and projects rather than duties and responsibilities. And they do like to work with teams. And they like to have this interaction with the boss. They're not big into plaques. They're not big into awards and stuff like that. There was a great article in Success Magazine. Success Magazine is another magazine I just love. Is anybody familiar with this? Success Magazine. It doesn't cost very much. It comes with a CD that basically does a synopsis of the major articles. And the young man that wrote this article, where I got most of my information on this, talked a little bit about making sure that you celebrate their birthdays. So this wasn't in the article, but it was on the audio tape. So I'm listening to this and I'm like, celebrate their birthdays? So this isn't Chuck E. Cheese. I'm a lot like my dad, okay? So, and then I started thinking about it. I have 3 children. Birthdays have always been a big event in our house. I fix their favorite meal. We go out to their favorite restaurant. And then they have a party where all their friends come over. So like birthdays in my house are 3 days events, So birthdays are important. So why not celebrate birthdays? Actually, in my organization, we do celebrate birthdays. But I heard kind of through the back office that one day, one of the guests was celebrating his birthday. So we brought a breakfast pizza instead of a birthday cake. So she said later, why didn't you get a birthday cake? I thought we'd get a breakfast pizza. So it's just kind of one of those things where they want to be noticed, and I think they do. Well, and everybody likes attention. There's certainly nothing wrong with attention, but yeah, I thought about that. I thought, wow. And then I thought about my children, and I thought what I have done, you know. So. A big thing, and there was just an article in the Des Moines Register just yesterday about mentoring. Young workers want to be mentored, so find a mentor in your organization and partner them up. You know, because the mentor can take care of them. And then Jack Welch talks about reverse mentor, where he would pair up his older workers, his older staff, with the younger people, because the younger people get the technology and could teach the older person. The older people could teach the young pups the new tricks, that type of situation. So if you want to keep your star players, partner them up with a mentor. There was a great article in the Des Moines Register yesterday. Did you see it, Mike? I saw you shaking your head about it. And even if you can't find a mentor in your organization, which sometimes is difficult, go find a mentor outside your organization. This is a great place to start. Don't pair up your young female stars with the queen bee. Does anybody know about what a queen bee is? Queen bee is a woman about my age who's had to scrape and claw and climb and work her way to the top and is not interested in helping young women. Now that's not my case, okay? But sometimes you have to be careful because sometimes young women can get sabotaged in the organization and paired up with the queen bee. There was a nice article about it in Wall Street Journal about 2-3 weeks ago. Very sad. So anyway, getting back to, this is just a little quote about appreciation, but years ago when I was first in the staffing business, my boss called me and said, Katie, most times stay with the staffing service because of the way they're treated, not because of like 25 cents or 50 cents across the street with their service. And that's always stuck with me. People just want to be appreciated, they want to be felt welcome, they want to know that they have meaningful work and they contribute to the organization. And that's not only true of young workers, but that's true of everybody. So, now, here is the key to success. You guys are so lucky you're here. Nobody else is going to get this information. Okay, are you ready? When you're dealing with employees, there's only one solution, just one solution. Okay? And it's to drink and drink heavily. What questions do you have for me? Yes?
Yeah, your general thoughts about, you talked about the interview process. You know, I think in general statistics are you would know in terms of the success or failure of hiring somebody that, you know, 50% of the time you're going to find out that that person is right for the position. So how good a predictor do you think that the interviewing process really is to performance? I would imagine some people are very good at just answering those questions and, you know, you can put on a great face, but yet when it comes down to performing all these things that you talked about, problem solving, et cetera, it's really hard to measure that in a one-sitting, artificial situation. Can you talk about that?
I think that's a really good point. I mean, if there was a foolproof way of interviewing, I would patent and that's all I would do. Sure. You know, I mean, it's, you know, like we do those behavioral-based evaluations, they tell us a lot. We tell our clients to really spend a lot of quality time with applicants before you hire them. You know, percentage-wise, I couldn't speak to that. I think probably, yeah, and you're right, like when I interview salespeople, the best sales job they ever do is on you, okay? They're rock stars. A lot of times the salespeople go, you know, you made $100,000, can you show me your W-2? Well, I would have made $100,000, except, you know, I didn't get this one order, my boss took it, and, you know, that type of thing. But I think more importantly I'm not really addressing your question, but a lot of times what companies do is when they figure out they've made a mistake, they don't terminate it quickly. Because one of my prospects the other day said, we just deploy people who are not working out. You know, that's a great way of doing it. We help them find other careers. They keep hanging on and hanging on and hanging on. You know, thinking the person's gonna change. The person's not gonna change. You know, so I know that didn't quite answer your question. I just think slow to hire and quick to fire. And I think the other thing, I didn't really talk about this, and I talked about it in the previous, when I talked to other groups, but I think it's important to develop a farm team. Here you have the Iowa Cubs. The Iowa Cubs is here so that when the Chicago Cubs, when somebody gets injured, they can pull somebody up. So what I've tried to do is start to develop relationships with people that I think are really, really great, that eventually I would like to have work in my organization. And they may not be ready to come work for me now, but hopefully when they are ready to come work for me, they give me a call. You know, so, but that takes time and effort. I gotta keep that. Once a quarter I send them an article, once a quarter I call them or take them out for coffee. But I think there's something innately good about it that I sit there and I think, I want those people to work for me eventually. There was a branch manager for one of my competitors in town. We really liked her a lot. I have a good working relationship with the competitors. We help each other out and things like that. She moved to Omaha, and I don't think she's happy in her current position. And so I talked to my general manager today, and he said, "Gosh, can we get her back? She's outstanding." You know, I said, "What do we have to do to recruit her back to Des Moines?" So we're kind of working through that, but we've kept in touch with her. You know, so that type of situation. So I know I didn't really answer your question, but I think it's just important to spend time with people before you hire them. I mean, did you marry your wife after 3 dates? Well, maybe you did. You paused just a little too long.
Story. It took too long to discuss.
That's what I say about, you know, sometimes it's also good with a resume. It's better to interview off an application, and the application keeps everything standardized. Resumes, this stuff is all over. Some people may lead off with their education, so many people may put it back. They may kind of hide it. I attended the University of Iowa, and lead you to believe you think they have a degree. You know, a resume is like a first date. The resume is going to be the perfect picture. You know, John didn't tell his wife on their first date that, you know, mental illness ran in his family. I mean, he wanted her to fall in love with him before he kind of revealed that other side of him that wasn't so attractive. You know, so you know, sorry, John. Who's like the greatest man guy in the world. Okay, so, but you know, so the resume is just the first date. That's why you really have to drill down on when you interview people, because it's just the first picture. Yes.
I read an article recently, and I've seen this a couple times, you know, kind of as the baby boomers are getting ready to retire and millennials are coming in, the recession has driven a lot of companies to behave in a way, you know, looking leaner, demanding more, you know, more, in a way that those millennials want nothing to do with. So, particularly as you're recruiting, you know, are you finding that some companies that are your clients, you're having to have a conversation with them to say, the way you are working and driving people isn't going to fit with this generation? What do you think about that?
That's a really good point, and I'll kind of talk about it in 2 ways, because, you know, we have a temp to hire division, we have a temporary division, and then we do a lot of firm placement. And like sometimes when I call people, when I'm trying to recruit out of companies, like I'll call the person, a lot of times it's not the money that is bothering them. It's yes, will they like a raise if they're gonna change positions? Absolutely. But a lot of times it's they don't feel like they're gonna be promoted. Maybe they've been turned down for promotion, maybe the company's been bought out, maybe there's been turnover. That's the kind of thing that makes people start to look at other opportunities. You know, they're sitting at their desks, they're pretty happy. You know, they're keeping their head, but during the recession, most of them were just kind of keeping their head on the radar screen because they were afraid if they looked up, you know, like Burkhead style, you know, you're gone, you know, you're fired next, you're the next person. So recruiting during that time was very difficult because people were much less likely to change because they didn't want to go someplace else and keep the last person hired. But sometimes we've had to have some crucial conversations with clients on the temp side. We have a lot of great clients, but sometimes temps are treated like employees. Now there's a good reason for that. I don't want to get into a co-employment issue, you know, because these people technically are my employees. So you have to be a little careful about that. But I'll never forget one time a client provided lunch for everybody in their organization and they didn't invite the temps. And, you know, and so, you know, so then I called the client out and they go, well, Katie, we can't have them here because then they look like employees. And, you know, and I said, I understand that, but please call me the next time you do that so I can bring Subway sandwiches in for our temps. You know, we do a lot of stuff for our temps that other staffing agencies don't do because we just want to make them feel appreciated. Like administrative day is next week. Every temp is going to get a $5 gift certificate. So it's not a big deal. It doesn't cost us that much money, but you can't believe the emails I get back when we do stuff like that. Because a lot of times they just don't feel appreciated. So I think companies are going to start realizing when they start losing people. I think eventually like companies will have directors of retention. People who are just focused on retention. But yeah, I think it's the companies that don't treat their employees well are going to be the world of hurt. I don't know if I answered your question. Did you?
So along those same lines, are you seeing some push on wages? So what issue in the industry?
Well, that's a good point.
You see them, my technology friends say it's just a couple of clients.
It is.
Folks, but they also say it sounds like
I agree with you, and I don't do a lot of IT, so I can't specifically talk to IT. But clients still want a person who should be paid $10,000 more for $10,000. And maybe we're all guilty of that. You know what I'm saying? We all want really, really great people. The labor shortage will force salaries up. You know, part of the problem's been, like one of my HR clients right now, where I'm trying to find an HR manager, is that there's been salary compression in the organization. The person that they want that is probably going to have $10,000 more on average than a lot of the other people in the department. So they're going to have to look at readjusting all the salary, which of course costs money. But I had another client where I did a senior VP of HR. They wanted X, so I gave them candidates at X, and they called me up and go, Katie, these are not the candidates I'm looking for. I said, yes, I understand. The candidates that you want are making this range. Oh, okay, and they finally have yes, and then we found candidates in that range. You know, so you can, that's my challenge always is, you know, because very few people are gonna make a lateral move unless they're just miserable, you know.
And do you feel that maybe instead of the stress pressure, it's the work-life balance that's giving the people new jobs instead of doing 50 hours or 40 hours and that's all you're doing for?
And actually, people will take less money for more of that. Studies will show that you can, if you're more flexible on part-time worker's job, starting, like, I have a young woman who works for me, she's got 2 children, her husband's on the scene. So we adjusted her hours to make it work for her, you know. So now can I do that for everybody? Everybody can't start at 8:15 in my company. I have to have somebody there at 7:30 for the temps that call in sick. You know, but we try, and she's a good worker, so we try to make that work for her. But we're smaller and I can do that. You know, sometimes you can't, you know, so, but people will take less money for more vacation. People would rather have more time off than the money. And that's been for this, it's not necessarily. Yes, sir.
So how do you deal with the situation where the millennials are seeing life as a 40-hour week and management notices it's a 60-hour week and the boomers that are there end up turning in a 90-hour week?
Well, welcome to my world. So I don't know, is there an answer to that? You asking me? You know, I don't, you know what I feel like anymore, and I had to adjust my paradigm on this. I just feel like if they give me a great 40 hours, I can't ask for more. You know, now if I hire director of sales, no, you know, but at my entry-level people, if they show up every day, if they really genuinely try, if they have good customer service skills and they work 40 hours and they leave at 5 o'clock, then I've had to come to accept that, you know, because when I was first in the staffing business, but I was a branch manager, you know, like I said, we didn't go home until all we worked. That was just the way it was, and I don't know if I can hire somebody if I told them that today. You know, so, especially like my mother who's got 2 children, she's got to pick her children up. And my operations manager is absolutely fabulous, has to be in daycare at 5:30 in Aiken. So she's got to be on the office corner. So, I don't know. You have a question? I'm sorry,
So we're going to hire a programmer, computer programmer. We've never hired before. We have no idea what they do.
Hey, good luck with that.
So the idea is we're trying not to get somebody to Carol, Iowa, or Carol.
It is a lot.
How do you manage somebody that's like doing something you really don't understand in a faraway place?
Wow.
I mean, even in the faraway places that you do in the morning,
Des Moines.
you're not seeing them every day.
I think you have to set up daily expectations. I think your lines of communication with that person have to be huge, even if it's a phone call in the morning and a phone call at night when they. I think you have to put whatever you figure out what your standards are in place, and I don't know what to tell you, or the workflow, or what your expectations are, and how that work's going to get done. I think communication is probably the biggest challenge. Because if you don't talk to them for a month, and then at the end of the month, and you find out they've done nothing, you're in trouble. So I think you have to. There are articles out there about the web about managing telecommuting workforces. But that's a real art. It requires a great deal of not supervision and management.
How do you do it on the personal side?
You mean keeping in touch with them, remembering their birthdays and that kind of thing? They're IT people, they don't care. If they like people, they wouldn't have went into, you know, if they wouldn't have went into IT, Tom, okay? You know, come on. You know, some of them still have their pencil pride. No, I think you just, because they're not basis, you just have to make, maybe, you know, you have coffee with them once a week. You take them out to lunch once a week, you know, but I think that communication and dealing with them, I think, is just, are you talking about in the interview process, or just after you've hired them? Yeah, so, did you want to add something?
I just wanted to ask you about one other area.
But Tom, there are resources on the internet. Matter of fact, if you grab my card, I think I sent out an article to my clients a couple years ago about dealing with the telecommuting workers and how to work with this.
And that's what we're about. I'm seeing more and more people are dealing with what they'll locate the person that they're going to hire. Let's say you put somebody in Des Moines. They'll go to a tech company in Des Moines. It's respected and say, we locate at your office and pay you a fee at their desk and have you be there for them for moral support, team support, you know, that kind of thing. Because it's hard to be, I've been an employee, it's hard, it's lonely, it's not fun, and it can be a reason to leave a job. And so you might think about going to one of the big service firms or, you know, help that have 6 different groups up in their facility using. So think about co-locating them into another tech business where they have strengths where you don't, and get that basic supervision and a place where we're with you.
Great. Yes.
You know, a lot of your presentation, as I heard it, was through the eyes of the potential employer, and identifying the red flags and checking the car, and that sort of thing. Kind of turn that around 180, and what would be some of the red flags as somebody who was interviewing for a position?
How much
time? 60 seconds.
I've written blogs and blogs and blogs about this. You know, I can't believe how unprepared people are for interviews. We spend so much time on candidate prep. They don't look up even the basic website on the company. They don't prepare for the interview. They don't address appropriately. They don't know where they're going. They ask inappropriate questions like right off the bat, how much vacation? I interviewed somebody the other day for my internal position. I said, what do you think of our website? She hadn't looked at it. Hello? You know, so to me sometimes it's so amazing when there's so much information out there as far as being able to research the organization and prepare for the interview. Everything I talked about, none of this is new. All this stuff can be found on, if you Google internet questions to ask IT people or behavioral-based questions to ask IT people, have so many resources available to you. So people who don't follow up with thank you notes, you know, I have 200 great questions that I send to candidates on the perm site when they're going in for an interview. I have had HR people call me and go, these are great. And I was like, HR.
But what would be the red flag for the person being interviewed?
To the I'm sorry, I
there's
misunderstood
something
you.
that I should be paying attention to.
You mean if you were talking to the client company?
Yes.
I would look at the types of questions they ask you. I would look at, if they're not asking you behavioral-based questions, I would be a little bit leery.
Yeah.
If they're not asking you what you think your challenges are gonna be, like a great question to ask is a potential employers, what do you think is gonna be the biggest challenge for this position in the next 90 days? That's a great question to ask. Sometimes, you know, employers don't spend how much time they spend with you. You know, like when a candidate calls me and goes, gosh, I was there for 2 hours, I'm like, wow, that was a long time. You know, so, but if they're not prepared, if they didn't have a job description, if you're applying for a job, always ask for a job description. A lot of companies, I ask them when they call me, I say, hey, do you have a job description? Well, we kind of know what we want this person to do. A lot of times, I prepare the job description and I send it to the client and I say, approve this.
Yeah.
Because I want something to send to the candidate.
Right.
Now, is that locked in stone? No, but so do they have a job description?
Thank you.
Anyway, Mike just gave me the.
Kate, to your opportunity afterwards.
Oh, absolutely.
All right. Thank you all very much. You'll get a survey in the email. If you would, please fill it out. We really do use that as feedback on